What celebrity is both a terrible calling him a pedophile is sugarcoating it, big time. In fact, I have a feeling that even other pedophiles would find him revolting. Among the many victims that he had, one of those victims was a 10-year-old. That 10-year-old had been groomed into thinking they were having an innocent sexual relationship with Davi. And when that 10-year-old told a friend at school about it, that friend posted a screenshot of the conversation to the internet. And when those screenshots made their way to Davi Vanity, how did he respond? By telling his fans that he would never do such a thing? Did he respond like a grown-up, and then use that opportunity to say to his child fans, "And if someone does do something like this to you, you should tell a trusted adult"? No. Instead, he makes a video aggressively mocking the victim, rounds up his fans to harass the victim, which subject the victim, and their family, to 10+ years of harassment and ridicule as a result. Then Davi wrote the song, I put that word in quotes because it's not music, calling the victim a slut and making violent threats against them. The song was called You Done Goofed, which was a direct reference to a video of the victim's father who said this exact thing while trying to defend his screaming, crying, hysterical child who had just been raped and tortured by this man. And then, as if that weren't bad enough, he released that song on the victim's 12th birthday. And then the victim had classmates shoving cameras in their face asking them to apologize to Davi, which they finally obliged as a way to get the harassment to stop. And Davi Vanity then used that as a way to say, "See, I didn't do that shit." They even admitted that they lied. Edit, I came back make the point that, when the victim was 12, one other member of Davi's cabal managed to make contact with the victim and take sexually explicit photos of them, which were then allegedly posted to the internet, and allegedly got to Davi Vanity, again, allegedly, because I am not about to look this shit up. There are some other honorable mentions, writing hypersexualized songs, which I refer to as lyrical child porn without any morsel of exaggeration. Just the titles of the songs alone tell you everything you need to know. For example, Scream for My Ice Cream, Welcome to Cantyland, S My D, Sext, I could go on. Which are clearly about children. Sext in particular has the lyric parents banging on the door, uh-oh, caught with my pants down / now I gotta leave this town, constantly pulling his pants down during concerts, which were heavily attended by children. He proudly exclaimed, during a concert, again, primarily attended by children, that he wanted to just come on all of their little titties, constantly sought out underage fans to bring back to his trailer after concerts, during tours, was well known to engage or reach out to fans via MySpace with very clear, and very rape-y intentions. He sounds like a dolphin. I mean, let's just fucking face it. His voice is really not a positive attribute. I know it's a minor detail, but it makes him quite punchable, and that is psycho turkey getup and shamo status, notwithstanding. I really hope that fucker gets what's coming to him. My daughter knows not one but two girls who were 15 and 16 when he slimed all over them. Edit to add, not to the point of reportable slimed, just grossly and slimily slimed. You know the deal. And what he and his sidekick did to that Damien Lenhart child of 12 is beyond sickening. He should have a whole separate sentence for the mental and emotional trauma he caused that poor child. Baffles me that he managed to release multiple albums. Only young teens ever listened to Botf and all their songs were about fucking. May have the timeliness of events wrong, but didn't he get caught messing with an underage girl in Mexico before his music career even began? Edit, https://www.huffpost.com/entry/Davi sexual assault _F/C82F84B0D9361627K1F. Think this is the event I was thinking of. Florida, not Mexico. But Davi before Botf got big. I'm shocked and horrified Davi still hasn't been thrown in prison yet. Even without the rape allegations and other creepy sex stuff he's done, he's still a horrible person. He trash-talked someone at one of his concerts, constantly got in arguments with people on Twitter, including sending people death threats, treated his bandmates horribly, including refusing to get Jay medical treatment for his HIV because they were on tour, constantly plagiarized other people's contents and got into an argument with one of the people he plagiarized who called him out, and constantly egged on the harassment of a preteen who accused him, which even if it was a false accusation, they claimed they only took it back because they kept getting harassed, but now they stand by their accusations about Davi being true. That was still a child, dude. Davi was in his 20s at the time harassing a child. There's probably other things he's done that I can't remember at the moment, but I think this gets the point across. Oh, if I got one on Jeffrey. I was at Vans Warped Tour in NJP&C Bank years ago with my mates. We see Jeffrey, who had been harassing the lads from Amity Affliction right before that, and they were like, who is this conceited goat? But anyway, this preteen girl goes up to him and tries to say hi. This fail of a human being pushed her aside and his bodyguard knocked her back. She fell on the grass and they kept walking with Jeffrey laughing. The girl was handicapped. I couldn't believe how gross this dude was. Like there was literally no one but her trying to say hi to him. He looked at her like she was gross and pushed her aside. Her aunt ran to her and so did we. I have honestly never seen such a boss move from anyone ever. We introduced her to some bands we knew were also playing and she got a photo with Aaron Stringer from Amity and he was superbly sweet to her. I have never wanted to knock someone out so badly before in my life. Ricegum. It goes without saying that his music is shit, but his personality is worse. He's basically just a massive douchebag who's famous for being a massive douchebag, but his fans love him for it. He's basically the kind of dude who would push a bullshit scam cryptocurrency to his audience of kids, get caught, and make a bullshit apology video with some bullshit Amazon gift card codes. I see a lot of bullshit about him, and to a lesser extent the Pauls and other influencers, saying that he's a good guy away from the cameras, which drives me insane. If you spend all day every day on camera being an asshole, you can't request to be the judge purely on what happens in the other 10% of your time just because nobody can prove that you continue being an asshole when nobody's looking. I used to work in the film industry, feeding the cast and crew. I absolutely loved my job and did it on and off for about 20 years. I was working on a film with the woman I was really looking forward to meeting, Marlo Thomas, as I used to watch her on That Girl back in the 60s. Her co-star was Joe Penny, from Jake and the Fat Man, and I had worked with him before on another movie. When I delivered his breakfast to the makeup trailer, she was at the far end and just staring daggers at me. Right from the get-go, she wanted me fired and made it her mission to make my life miserable. When she couldn't get me fired, she came up with the most creative ways to make me look bad. She sent her minions to ask me to write out everything I did during the day and have it sent to her. Then, in front of the crew, she blurted, "What is this?" referring to the craft table. "Do you know how hard these people work?" I received many sympathetic looks from the crew, most of whom I'd worked with for years. She continued to shame and embarrass me, but my PM, production manager, came to my rescue and told her that if I go, he goes. I had been specifically asked for because of my experience and personality and managed to get through the entire show. She mentioned to the crew that she would be coming back for another project and asked for them to be on that show with her again. Not one of them said yes. She was such a hateful shrew. The daughter of Danny Thomas, who grew up in the industry, but because of some personal vendetta, she acted like a spoiled kid. I was so disappointed, but there you go. Just because you see them on TV or the movies, you don't have any idea who they really are. Randy Jackson from American Idol. This didn't happen to me but to my brother. He used to work as a waiter at a high-end Chinese restaurant, and one night, lo and behold, in walks Randy Jackson with his 2 bodyguards. He had the bodyguards do all the talking to the waitstaff and even had the audacity to attempt to skip out on his $150 tab. As Randy and his posse were pulling up to exit the parking lot, my brother jumps out in front of them and demanded them to pay their tab. He paid the tab but didn't leave my brother a tip. He's paid millions upon millions of dollars, but doesn't have the courtesy to leave a tip, let alone try and skip on a tab. Fuck him. He also said people with less melanin are savages, but somehow that got glossed over. Dude is a piece of shit racist, and got to keep his job. Nick then expounds on his point. The people that don't have melanin are a little less, he continues, noting that he is trying to be cognizant of his wording. They may not have the compassion when they were sent to the mountains of Caucasus when they didn't have the power of the Sunday. The sun then started to deteriorate them, so then they're acting out of fear. They're acting out of low self-esteem. They're acting out of a deficiency. So, therefore, the only way that they can act is evil. They have to rob, steal, rape, kill in order to survive. So then, these people that didn't have what we have, and when I say we, I speak of the melanated people, they had to be savages. Allow me to explain exactly why Hitler's artwork was bad, since this discussion comes up every time it's mentioned on Reddit. The trouble with Hitler as an artist is that he clearly had a flair for architectural landscapes, but he wasn't willing to put in the work to master the fundamentals. The perspective of his buildings were off, with architecture that didn't make sense. These are very basic mistakes that should be fixed at the sketching stage, but he would ignore them and finish his paintings with these fundamental flaws intact. This was noticed by the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna. They didn't reject him outright. They offered him the chance to study in a lower-level course, and then apply again once he had improved. But Hitler wasn't willing to do that, and so he gave up on art completely instead. Brown was driving a vehicle with Robin F. as the front passenger on an unknown street in Los Angeles. Robin F. picked up Brown's cellular phone and observed a 3-page text message from a woman who Brown had a previous sexual relationship with. A verbal argument ensued and Brown pulled the vehicle over on an unknown street, reached over Robin F. with his right hand, opened the car door and attempted to force her out. Brown was unable to force Robin F. out of the vehicle because she was wearing a seat belt. When he could not force her to exit, he took his right hand and shoved her head against the passenger window of the vehicle, causing an approximate 1-inch raised circular contusion. Robin F. turned to face Brown and he punched her in the left eye with his right hand. He then drove away in the vehicle and continued to punch her in the face with his right hand while steering the vehicle with his left hand. The assault caused Robin F.'s mouth to fill with blood and blood to splatter all over her clothing and the interior of the vehicle. Brown looked at Robin F. and stated, "I'm going to beat the sh out of you when we get home. You wait and see." The detective said Robin F. then used her cell phone to call her personal assistant Jennifer Rosales, who did not answer. Robin F. pretended to talk to her and stated, "I'm on my way home. Make sure the police are there when I get there." After Robin F. faked the call, Brown looked at her and stated, "You just did the stupidest thing ever. Now I'm really going to kill you." Brown resumed punching Robin F. and she interlocked her fingers behind her head and brought her elbows forward to protect her face. She then bent over at the waist, placing her elbows and face near her lap in an attempt to protect her face and head from the barrage of punches being levied upon her by Brown. Brown continued to punch Robin F. on her left arm and hand, causing her to suffer a contusion on her left triceps. That was approximately 2 inches in diameter and numerous contusions on her left hand. Robin F. then attempted to send a text message to her other personal assistant, Melissa Ford. Brown snatched the cellular telephone out of her hand and threw it out of the window onto an unknown street. Brown continued driving and Robin F. observed his cellular telephone sitting in his lap. She picked up the cellular telephone with her left hand and before she could make a call he placed her in a headlock with his right hand and continued to drive the vehicle with his left hand. Brown pulled Robin F. close to him and bit her on her left ear. She was able to feel the vehicle swerving from right to left as Brown sped away. He stopped the vehicle in front of 333 North June Street and Robin F. turned off the car, removed the key from the ignition and sat on it. Brown did not know what she did with the key and began punching her in the face and arms. He then placed her in a headlock, positioning the front of her throat between his bicep and forearm. Brown began applying pressure to Robin F.'s left and right carotid arteries. causing her to be unable to breathe, and she began to lose consciousness. She reached up with her left hand and began attempting to gouge his eyes in an attempt to free herself. Brown bit her left ring and middle fingers and then released her. While Brown continued to punch her, she turned around and placed her back against the passenger door. She brought her knees to her chest, placed her feet against Brown's body and began pushing him away. Brown continued to punch her on the legs and feet, causing several contusions. Robin F. began screaming for help and Brown exited the vehicle and walked away. A resident in the neighborhood heard Robin F's plea for help and called 911, causing a police response. An investigation was conducted and Robin F. was issued a domestic violence emergency protective order. In the late 90s, a very famous artist developed a successful franchise around his work. He even opened several officially licensed art galleries with his name on them. I've never been a fan of his work, but my mother was, so when I had a chance to visit one such gallery in Boston, a friend and I went to check it out. I was hoping to find a small print as a gift for her. I should have turned about face as soon as I heard the screaming from outside, but I didn't. As soon as we crossed the threshold of the doors, bam, there he is. Thomas Kinkade himself is screaming at this poor female intern, calling her names and humiliating her in front of a gallery full of about 4-6 people. She looked like she just wanted to go home and hide, and I swear she turned and looked at me with a help me expression. We noped the fuck out of there as fast as we could, and I later learned that he had a track record of abusing women pretty much all his life. Edited for spelling. Edit 2. A few have asked why I didn't try to stop him, which is a fair question. For context, I was a teenage girl when this incident happened. What do you honestly expect a frightened and naive teenage girl to do to stop a drunk, grown-ass man who was twice my size? There's a very good chance he'd have turned his abuse onto me. Furthermore, this incident happened about 2 months after Columbine. What do you think would happen to a teenage girl wearing black lipstick and a Marilyn Manson shirt, just for saying something? Not only could Kinkade possibly have started abusing me, but if someone decided to tell Boston PD that I was acting aggressively just because I was some goth kid wearing a shirt, then it'd be his word against mine and I'd have been taken to juvie with no questions asked. Law and Order, Criminal Intent an episode. I'm fairly certain it was the season 5 finale, 2006, where the villain was this hack artist with franchised galleries who murdered his business partners, and tried to frame their drug addict son for it. There's nothing that directly states the episode's inspiration, but the artist is really obviously supposed to be Thomas Kinkade, and the portrayal is beyond unflattering. I've never liked Kinkade, as an artist or otherwise, and I remember loving that episode when I first saw it because he's depicted as such a slimy asshole. I also don't like how she is trying to say everyone who signed the change petition to get her removed from Aquaman 2 movies are just Depp fans and there is no merit to it. I'm pretty sure there are plenty of people who are neutral to him, like myself, that signed it because it is only fair that she also gets removed from projects for being an abuser. She shouldn't get a free pass for being a woman. Then the obvious she sucks at acting. Gigi is special I think because from the get-go you'd understand what he was all about. He was an unrepentant psychopath, and he'd tell you exactly that if you asked him. It's all the folk that had garnered near universal admiration while secretly being total fucking monsters that keep me up at night. A wolf in sheep's clothing is way more terrifying than an actual wolf. Steven Seagal. His movies are garbage. His fighting style and running style in films is laughable. He can't act, and he's a rapist, potential sex trafficker. Weinstein actresses on his films. Eric Eleniak, friend of multiple Eastern European dictators. His films were partially funded with mob money and he got choked out by one of his own stuntmen after he challenged him. I don't think I covered how much of a piece of shit Steven Seagal is. This does. https://www.iart.com/podcast/105 Behind the Bastards 2923633/episode/part 1 Steven Seagal is so 3000435/.